My 1989 Honda Civic hatchback. What I need to do right now is to diagnose a clicking sound that's coming from the front axle, I believe. So I'm going to put my window down on both sides. I can tell it's coming from the left side, but I just want to make sure. I'm going to make a hard left turn. Now we're going to do a hard right. Then we're going to accelerate. Okay, so we did the driving test, and now we want to take the wheel off and just verify what the problem is. So we go in here and we take a look at the left side here and look at the boot, and there's no holes in the boot, there's no grease flying out. I want to check if this outer joint is defective, and the way to do that is grab the crankshaft over, move it back and forth, and you can hear that noise. There shouldn't be any play. So based on that, we can tell that the outer joint is worn. Now we're going to check the inner joint. I mean, that by itself, we should replace the axle, but we're going to check the inner joint also. You want to hang the axle can go in and out this way, but we're looking for the play between the axle and this housing of the axle. So what you want to do is hold on to the axle, the housing here, and then you kind of want to move the axle up and down as you hold on to this. And it's really hard to do, but I don't really feel any play here. Slightly, I feel a slight movement. Yeah, I can feel a slight movement, which is not a good thing. So it's a little worn over here too. Took the lug nuts off the tires, and this plastic cap I need to remove. Put the tire underneath for safety. We need to take this nut off with this, but as you can see, it turns. So that's why I took the tire off and then punched the cap off of here. And then I'm going to mount this back onto the car. Just put it on lightly. Okay, so now the wheel's not going to spin. Now I'm going to turn the front wheel so I have better access to this. So there's a cotter pin here, and I'm going to have to remove that. with a 17mm socket. I'm going to take that bolt off so I can get the tie rod off. Oh, this is not going to come out because it's pressure fitted in. So you need a tool like this puller. You got to use various types, but this one fits this car. And I just put it on here, and then I'm going to press the this bolt out by turning the screw here. Okay, so we've got it to pop out. What I'm going to do next is to take this bolt out because I can't get the axle housing through this yoke. It won't pass through here, so I have to remove this and remove the axle from down here. We're going to put some penetrant here. And we got a 17mm socket. And we have to hold it on the other side with another 17mm wrench on the other side. And we'll get a cheater bar. Then some light taps with the hammer to push the bolt through. Then I'm going to use a punch to finish it. Okay, so now I'm going to remove the bolt for the lower control arm. And again, there's a cotter pin down here. So I'll get a screwdriver flathead first. So we're going to use a 17mm again down here to take this nut off. Except I'm going to need a cheater bar. Okay, so there's a couple pullers you can use. This one unfortunately fits perfectly, but it has this nub here, and I don't want to destroy this tool because there's no like hole underneath here to push it through. The other way to do it is another tool like this, but this one doesn't quite fit. So there's another technique I'm going to use. I'm going to use this chisel handle right here and stick this under here, or I can put a wrench handle, which is a little bit more narrow, and slip this between the knuckle and the lower control arm. And then we'll slowly lower the jack. Okay, so the chisel handle now is in between those, and as we lower the jack, the ball joint should come off. Oh, there we go. Did you hear that? So it's loose now. So as we lower the control arm again with the jack, this whole unit has now separated. This whole unit has now separated. Okay, we can take this off now. Now we're going to push the axle through as much as we can. Okay. Okay, so now we're going to move the assembly here and push out the axle as we pull. There you go. You can see how well lubricated this is, because in the past I did change the axle before, so it came out fairly easily from the knuckle. So the inner axle housing here, we're going to have to remove, pry it off the transmission, and you could use a large flathead screwdriver, or I got like a flat crowbar. There we go. This is kind of difficult to get out because the yoke is further down from the lower control arm. So I'm putting pressure up with the jack up on the yoke. At the same time, I'm going to get a crowbar to move this one down a little bit. So I get a crowbar and I stick it under a good frame point, and then I press down, and it would lower the lower control arm like that. And at the same time, I'm going to pull on the vice grips, and which is connected to the punch. So it's nearly impossible to get it through this yoke here. This yoke is not big enough, so I'm going to have to also remove the yoke. So I'm going to take the screw off, bolt off with the ratchet. Okay, the important aspect of this is you got to take this bolt all the way off, because this bolt is carved into the strut here. There's a little divot, so you got to pull the bolt all the way out in order to get this off, because this will not come off unless you take the entire bolt off. See, when you take the bolt off, there's a divot in the strut that holds that yoke on. Right behind here, there's a little divot, so you have to take the entire bolt off. Tap it in and just kind of force it in like that. So you want to make sure the new one, which is right here, is basically the same as the old one here. I checked the diameter here. It's about the same as this. And this is about the same here. When I come down here, however, this one seems larger. I don't think I should worry about that. That one is the ABS ring, and this car does not have the ABS ring, so, but I think this will clear it. I am not 100% sure about all of this. I measured, this one is also larger compared to this. This size, it's slightly larger, but then I checked with this and compared it to where the bearing seats right against this. I think this would be okay. I might have to get rid of this rubber part though, because it might be rubbing against the knuckle flange. So we'll see about that. So now I'm going to mount the axle into the transmission there. Okay, unfortunately this rubber part right here, and I'm not sure about the back ones here. This one fits okay, you know, around here. It clears this flange, so that's a good thing, but it's binding. It's definitely binding. It's definitely binding with this rubber, so I'm going to remove that rubber. I'm not sure about these, this area here, but we'll see. Well, I'm going to use a screwdriver and a knife here to see if I can pry this off in one piece. I pulled it away with the knife. It's coming off nicely, the rubber. And now I'm going to get a screwdriver, probably get a larger screwdriver, and continue to pry the rubber up. Well, that came off pretty easily. We've got a problem here because I tightened this up and it's not turning very freely. So the back of the axle housing is touching the knuckle here, but there's a sleeve on that knuckle. I'm thinking about taking that sleeve off, so I'm going to try that. Some parts, it looks like right here is hitting this back of the knuckle, but the sleeve appears like we can pop this out, and I'm going to try to do that next. So just using a screwdriver, the sleeve popped out very easily, so we'll try to mount it on there again and see if there's any binding. Okay, so I tightened the nut down, and it seems like it's working very, very well now. It's turning very freely. Before I put this together, what I'm going to do here is repack some grease into this lower ball joint since I'm here. There's a metal ring. The rubber boot is in good shape, and I've got to make sure I don't tear it, but there's a ring that's holding that on. I'll take that off and then repack with grease. So you can see now it's filled with grease. I like to lube a little bit as I go along the bolts that I'm going to put back in. Okay, so to attach this yoke, the torque is 47 pounds. I want to put the lower ball joint into the lower control arm and put some weight on it. Then I'll put some weight on it to lower the control. I want to show you what I'm doing here is I'm getting the sledgehammer handle and bringing it underneath and the frame, and then to the lower control arm and lowering that. I need to lower this a little bit here. Yeah, I want to lower it as much as possible so I can lift this. That's better. So I put the lever on the other side there. It seems like it's better. To get this bolt through, I'm going to need quite a bit of leverage to bring the lower control arm down. What I'm using is this long bar, sticking it under the frame there, and then putting it on the lower control arm. Going through. Okay. Starting to go through. It's nearly through, so I'm just going to tap it through with a hammer. Okay, so we got this bolt here. And we're going to torque this to 40 pounds. Grease the threads up on this castle nut. And we're going to torque this to about 36 pounds. I torqued it to about 36, but you notice I can't get the castle nut through. So what I'm going to do is turn it one more so I can clear cotter pin through. Okay, so we got the cotter pin through. I ended up replacing this boot, and you can see another video that I did to show you how to do that. Now I'm going to put the castle nut on, and we're going to torque it to 33 pounds. We're going to put the tire back on briefly so we can tighten this spindle nut. We're not going to torque it down too tight. We don't need to right now. That's good enough, and we'll put the wheel down. Okay. And we're going to torque it to 133 pounds. Have it torqued, and we're going to take the wheel back off now. We have to bend this nut into this groove here to lock in the bolt, and we will use a punch to do that. Put the tire back on. I've got a spacer, so I'm going to put the spacer on first. And then we do the final tighten up. In a crisscross pattern. And then finally we'll put the cap on.